The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of 442B as Marine Ranger Sarah adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. The alien landscape stretched endlessly before her, a mix of purple vegetation and crystalline formations that still made her stomach turn after 6 months on this godforsaken planet. She had volunteered for the Deep Space Reconnaissance mission, thinking it would be an adventure, a chance to make her mark in the Marine Corps. Now, lying flat on her belly behind a ridge of jagged rocks, she wondered if she would ever see Earth again. The distress signal crackled through her helmet communicator, breaking the eerie silence that had settled over the alien world. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Delta Squad requesting immediate backup. We are pinned down at grid reference 77 Alpha. Heavy resistance from indigenous hostiles. Repeat, we need backup now." Sarah's heart raced as she recognized Lieutenant's voice. Delta Squad had been sent to investigate strange energy readings near the abandoned mining facility 3 clicks south of her position. The facility had been mysteriously evacuated 2 weeks ago, with all equipment left behind and no sign of the workers. Command suspected hostile alien interference, but intelligence was limited. Through her high-powered scope, Sarah could see the mining complex in the distance. Smoke was rising from several buildings, and she could make out the distinctive muzzle flashes of human weapons. But something else was moving between the structures, something that definitely wasn't human. The creatures were tall and spindly, with movements that seemed too fluid and coordinated to be natural. "Delta Squad, this is Ranger. I have visual on your position. What's your situation?" Sarah transmitted, her finger already moving to the safety of her sniper rifle. "Thank God, we've got at least 20 hostiles, possibly more. They came out of nowhere and surrounded us. We're trapped in Building C with limited ammunition, is down and's been hit in the shoulder. We need extraction or we're not making it out of here." Sarah studied the tactical situation through her scope. The alien creatures had Delta Squad completely surrounded, using the industrial equipment as cover while they closed in on the building. Their movements were coordinated and intelligent, suggesting a level of tactical awareness that made them far more dangerous than the wildlife they had encountered before. She keyed her radio again. "I count approximately 25 hostiles from my position. They appear to be using coordinated attack patterns. Can you give me a clear field of fire on the east side of Building C?" "Negative, they've got us locked down tight. We can't even get to a window without taking fire. These things are fast, and their weapons seem to shoot some kind of energy projectiles." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was the only Marine in position to help, and Delta Squad was running out of time. Her training kicked in as she began calculating distances, wind speed, and trajectory. The range was just over 800 meters, well within her capabilities, but the alien targets moved differently than anything she had trained for. The creatures seemed to communicate without sound, coordinating their movements with an efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. They moved in groups of 3 or 4, leapfrogging between cover positions while maintaining constant pressure on the building where Delta Squad was trapped. "I'm going to start picking them off from the east flank. When I do, they'll probably figure out where I am pretty quickly. Be ready to move when I give you the signal." "Roger that, we'll be ready." Sarah took a deep breath and settled into her firing position. The alien landscape around her seemed to hold its breath as she acquired her first target. One of the creatures was moving between 2 pieces of mining equipment, and for a brief moment, it would be completely exposed. The shot rang out across the purple landscape, echoing off the crystalline formations. 800 meters away, the alien creature dropped instantly, its strange weapon clattering across the rocky ground. The other hostiles immediately began looking around, trying to identify where the shot had come from. Sarah was already acquiring her second target when the aliens began their counterattack. Several of them broke off from the assault on Building C and began moving in her direction, their energy weapons sending bright blue pulses across the terrain. The shots impacted the rocks around her position, sending sparks of superheated stone flying through the air. "Good shot, you got one of them. They're starting to spread out looking for you," his voice crackled through the communicator. Sarah fired again, this time taking down an alien that was trying to flank around the north side of the complex. The creature's death caused the others to become more cautious, but it also made them more determined to find and eliminate the sniper who was disrupting their assault. As she worked the bolt of her rifle and chambered another round, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning. Delta Squad was still trapped. The aliens were adapting to her tactics, and she was completely alone on an alien world with limited ammunition and no backup coming. But she was a Marine Ranger, trained for exactly this kind of impossible situation. She would hold the line, no matter what it took. The alien energy pulses were getting closer to Sarah's position with each volley. She could hear the distinctive whining sound they made as they cut through the air, followed by the sharp crack of superheated rock when they struck near her hiding spot. The creatures had definitely figured out her general location and were systematically working their way up the ridge toward her. Sarah adjusted her position, crawling 20 meters to the north along the rocky outcropping. Through her scope, she could see that the aliens had split into two groups. One was maintaining pressure on Building C where Delta Squad remained pinned down, while the other was moving up the hillside in a coordinated search pattern. "You still there? We heard a lot of energy fire coming from your direction." Lieutenant's voice sounded strained over the radio. "Still here, they're trying to flush me out, but I've got a few tricks left. How are you holding up down there?" "Not good, is unconscious from blood loss and we're down to our last 2 magazines. Can still shoot, but his shoulder's pretty torn up. We need to move soon or we're not going to make it." Sarah lined up another shot on an alien that was moving too confidently across open ground. The bullet found its mark, and the creature spun and fell among the purple vegetation. That made 3 down, but there were still too many for Delta Squad to make a clean escape. The aliens' tactical adaptation was impressive and terrifying. After losing 3 of their number to her sniper fire, they had begun moving only in short rushes between cover, never exposing themselves for more than a few seconds at a time. They were also using their fallen comrades' weapons to provide covering fire, keeping Sarah pinned down while others advanced. A new sound echoed across the alien landscape, a low, harmonious humming that seemed to come from all directions at once. Sarah had never heard anything like it before, and it made her skin crawl. Through her scope, she could see the surviving aliens had stopped their advance and were standing perfectly still, their heads tilted as if listening to something. "Are you hearing this humming sound?" "Affirmative. What do you think it means?" Before Sarah could answer, the question became terrifyingly clear. More aliens began emerging from the mining complex, these ones larger and more heavily armed than the first group. They moved with the same fluid coordination, but their weapons were different, longer and more substantial, with a strange organic quality that made them look grown rather than manufactured. "Oh no, we've got more company, at least 15 additional hostiles emerging from the complex. These ones look different, more heavily armed." "Copy that. I hate to ask this, but how much ammunition do you have left?" Sarah checked her magazine and the spare rounds in her tactical vest. 12 rounds left plus what's in the chamber, not nearly enough. The new group of aliens was spreading out in a wide formation, some heading toward Sarah's position while others took up positions to reinforce the siege on Building C. Their coordination was even more sophisticated than the first group, and Sarah realized she was witnessing some form of military organization that was far more advanced than anyone had suspected. She took careful aim at one of the larger aliens and squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect, center mass, but instead of dropping like the others, this one stumbled and kept moving. Its armor or natural hide was apparently much thicker than the smaller aliens. "Damn," Sarah muttered, working the bolt quickly. The larger alien had spotted the muzzle flash and was directing others toward her position. She could see them coordinating their approach, using hand signals that looked disturbingly familiar to human military tactics. The energy fire intensified around her position, and Sarah knew she had to move again. The rocky ridge provided good cover, but it was limited, and the aliens were systematically eliminating her hiding spots. She began crawling toward a cluster of the crystalline formations that dotted the landscape, hoping their strange mineral composition might provide better protection. As she moved, her radio crackled with Delta Squad's increasingly desperate situation. "They're right outside the building now. We can hear them moving around, and they've started doing something to the walls, some kind of cutting tool." Sarah reached the crystal formations and set up a new firing position. Through her scope, she could see that several aliens were indeed working on the exterior walls of Building C with devices that glowed with intense heat. They were going to cut their way in rather than wait for Delta Squad to run out of ammunition. She lined up a shot on one of the aliens working on the wall and fired. The bullet struck the creature in the back, and it collapsed against the building. The others immediately scattered, but they resumed their work from better cover positions. They're cutting through the walls. You need to find another way out of there. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the processing plant next door. We're going to try to make it there, but we'll be exposed for about 30 meters. Sarah studied the route between the two buildings through her scope. The open ground was completely exposed to multiple alien positions, but it was their only chance. She would have to provide covering fire with her remaining ammunition, knowing that once she ran out, Delta Squad would be on their own. Okay, I'll provide cover, but you'll have to time it perfectly. Wait for my signal, then move fast. I can't keep them suppressed for long. The aliens seemed to sense that something was about to happen. Their movements became more agitated, and several of them began positioning themselves with clear fields of fire toward the building where Delta Squad was trapped. Sarah realized that this would be their last chance. If the escape attempt failed, none of them would be going home. Sarah's hands were steady as she prepared for the most critical shooting of her life. Through her scope, she could see Delta Squad preparing to make their desperate run to the processing plant. Was helping, who had regained consciousness but was clearly weak from blood loss. Was checking his rifle one last time while keeping watch at the door. The aliens had almost finished cutting through the wall on the far side of Building C. Sarah could see the intense glow of their cutting tools, and knew that Delta Squad had perhaps 2 minutes before the hostiles broke through. The 30-meter dash to the processing plant would take them directly across the most dangerous kill zone she had ever seen. Count down from 10. On 0, you move. I'll suppress as many as I can, but you'll have to run like hell. Copy that. Is barely conscious, but says he can carry him. We're all going together. Sarah took a deep breath and began acquiring targets. There were at least 8 aliens with clear shots at the escape route, plus the larger, armored ones who could probably shrug off her remaining bullets. She would have to make every shot count and pray that the chaos would give Delta Squad enough time to reach safety. 10, 9, 8. Countdown echoed in her earpiece as Sarah settled behind her rifle. 7, 6, 5. She lined up her first shot on an alien positioned behind a piece of mining equipment. 4, 3, 2. Her finger tightened on the trigger. 1, 0. Geo. Sarah's rifle cracked, and the first alien dropped. She was already swinging toward her second target when the door to Building C burst open. Came out first, laying down covering fire with his assault rifle. Followed, carrying in a fireman's carry, his wounded shoulder clearly causing him agony. Sarah's second shot took down an alien that was rising to fire at the escaping Marines. Her third shot missed as the target dove for cover, but it forced the alien to stay hidden for precious seconds. Energy pulses began crisscrossing the open ground as the aliens realized what was happening. Keep moving, shouted, providing covering fire as struggled across the rough terrain with unconscious weight. Sarah's fourth shot shattered the weapon of an alien that was taking careful aim at. The creature dove for cover, but another immediately took its place. Her fifth shot caught that one center mass, and it toppled backward. Halfway across the open ground, stumbled. His weight and his own wounded shoulder had finally overcome his strength. Immediately moved to help, but this left them even more exposed and vulnerable. Sarah's sixth shot silenced an alien that was emerging from behind a container to get a better angle on the struggling Marines. 7 shots down, 6 remaining in her magazine. The aliens were starting to focus their return fire on her position, and the crystalline formations around her were beginning to crack and shatter under the energy barrage. Almost there, called out as they reached the last 10 meters to the processing plant. That's when everything went wrong. One of the larger armored aliens that Sarah had seen earlier stepped into view with a weapon that was obviously designed for heavy assault. The energy pulse it fired was 3 times larger than the others, and it struck the ground directly between and, sending both Marines flying. Sarah didn't hesitate. She put her 7th shot into the large alien center mass, knowing it probably wouldn't penetrate its armor but hoping to at least stagger it. The bullet struck and spun the creature around, giving time to get back to his feet and help up. But was no longer moving, and blood was spreading across the rocky ground where he had fallen. Was trying to lift him again, but his wounded shoulder had given out completely. Was attempting to carry both his wounded comrades, but it was an impossible task. Is in bad shape and can't use his arm. I can't carry them both. Sarah's eighth shot took down another alien that was closing in on the trapped Marines. 2 rounds left. She could see at least 6 hostiles still in position to fire on Delta Squad, and more were emerging from the mining complex. That's when she made the decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Sarah abandoned her sniper position and began running down the hillside toward the mining complex, her rifle in her hands and 2 bullets left in the magazine. "What are you doing?" His voice was desperate over the radio. "Buying you time, get them to safety." Sarah reached the edge of the complex and took cover behind a large piece of machinery. From this position, she could see several aliens between her and Delta Squad's position. She also realized that she was now completely surrounded, with no way back to her original position. Her 9th shot caught an alien by surprise as it tried to flank around toward. 1 bullet left. Sarah could see Delta Squad making the final push toward the processing plant, half carrying, half dragging both and. The last alien between them and safety was one of the large, armored ones. Sarah's final bullet wouldn't penetrate its armor, but she had one chance. The creature was standing near a fuel storage tank that had been damaged in the fighting. A small leak was visible, and fumes were rising in the alien atmosphere. Sarah lined up her last shot carefully, not at the alien, but at the fuel tank directly behind it. She squeezed the trigger, and her final bullet punched through the thin metal of the storage tank. The explosion lit up the alien landscape like a small sun. The armored alien was thrown clear, and the blast cleared the path to the processing plant. Through the smoke and flames, Sarah could see Delta Squad disappearing into the safety of the building. But now she was alone, surrounded by hostile aliens with an empty rifle and no way out. The surviving aliens were regrouping, and she could hear more of them coming from deeper within the mining complex. Sarah, Marine Ranger, had saved her squad, but she was about to pay the ultimate price for her heroism. Sarah pressed her back against the damaged machinery, her empty rifle useless in her hands. The explosion had bought Delta Squad the time they needed, but it had also announced her position to every hostile in the area. She could hear movement all around her, the soft, almost liquid sounds that the aliens made when they moved quickly across the rocky terrain. Her sidearm held 15 rounds, and she had 1 spare magazine. 31 bullets against an unknown number of hostile aliens on their home territory. The math was simple and brutal, but Sarah had been in impossible situations before. She was a Marine Ranger, trained to fight until her last breath. The first alien appeared around the corner of the machinery, moving with the fluid grace that made them so difficult to track. Sarah's pistol cracked twice, both shots center mass. The creature dropped, but she could already hear others approaching from multiple directions. "Come in, what's your status?" His voice crackled through her earpiece. "I'm alive but surrounded. How's Delta Squad?" "We made it to the processing plant. Is stable but unconscious, and shoulder is torn up but he'll live. We found a secure room with reinforced walls. What's your situation?" Sarah ducked as an energy pulse seared the air above her head. "Not great. I'm in the complex with at least a dozen hostiles closing in. My rifle's empty and I'm down to my sidearm." "Can you make it back to us?" Another alien appeared, this one trying to flank around her position. Sarah's next 2 shots sent it diving for cover. "Negative. They've got me boxed in. Listen, I want you to know that getting hurt wasn't anyone's fault. These things are smarter than we thought." "Don't talk like that. We're not leaving you behind." Sarah smiled grimly as she reloaded her pistol. "You don't have a choice. You need to get medical attention and need surgery on that shoulder. I'll hold them here as long as I can." The aliens seemed to be coordinating their next assault. Sarah could hear that strange humming sound again, the same one that had preceded the arrival of the reinforcements. She wondered if it was some form of communication or perhaps a way of calling for even more support. 3 aliens rushed her position simultaneously from different angles. Sarah's training took over, and she moved with the precise efficiency that had made her one of the Corps' best marksmen. Her first shot dropped the alien coming from her left. Her second and third shots forced the one on her right to seek cover. The third alien reached her position, but Sarah was ready. She ducked under its energy weapon and put 2 shots into its torso at point-blank range. 7 rounds left in her current magazine, plus the 15 in her spare. 22 bullets remaining. "We can hear gunfire from your position. Talk to me." "Still here, took down a few more, but there are plenty left." Sarah was breathing hard now, adrenaline and the alien atmosphere taking their toll. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Contact command. Tell them these aliens aren't just wildlife. They're organized, they use tactics, and they're adapting to our weapons and strategies. This isn't a simple contact situation. This is first contact with a hostile alien military force. Sarah had to dive behind a different piece of cover as energy pulses began striking her position from multiple angles. The aliens had learned from her defensive success and were now using coordinated fire to keep her pinned down while others maneuvered for better positions. You tell them yourself when we get back to base, replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Promise me, this information could save lives. These creatures are learning from every engagement. They're studying our tactics and adapting their own. The next human unit that encounters them needs to know what they're facing. Sarah spotted an alien trying to climb onto the machinery above her position. Her fourth and fifth shots sent it tumbling back down, but she could see others taking up elevated positions around the complex. They were systematically cutting off her escape routes and gaining superior firing angles. The strange humming sound was getting louder, and Sarah realized with growing dread that it was coming from underground. The mining complex had extensive tunnel systems, and the aliens were using them to bring up reinforcements from below. Soon, she would be facing not just the survivors from the original assault, but fresh troops who knew exactly where she was. I promise, Command will know everything that happened here. Good, there's one more thing. In my personal effects back at base, there's a letter for my sister. Make sure she gets it. That's an order, Lieutenant. Take care of your men. Sarah switched her radio to emergency beacon mode. If any human ships were monitoring the frequencies, they would at least know where she had made her last stand. Then she checked her weapon one more time and prepared for the final assault. The aliens emerged from the tunnels in perfect coordination, 6 of them, moving with the fluid precision of a special forces unit. But these were different from the others she had faced. They were larger, more heavily armored, and their weapons looked more advanced. Sarah realized she was now facing the alien equivalent of elite soldiers. She had 17 bullets left and 6 targets that might require multiple hits each. The math was even worse now, but Sarah had never surrendered in her life, and she wasn't about to start on an alien world. As the elite alien soldiers began their final assault, Sarah took aim at the first target and prepared to make every shot count. Delta Squad was safe. Command would receive vital intelligence about the alien threat, and her sister would know that she had died fighting for something that mattered. For a Marine Ranger, that was. The first elite alien soldier moved with a speed that seemed to defy physics. Sarah's first shot caught it in the center mass, but instead of dropping, the creature merely staggered and continued its advance. Her second shot hit it in what she hoped was its head, and finally it collapsed. 1 down, 5 to go, 15 bullets remaining. The other elite soldiers immediately adapted their tactics. Instead of the direct assault Sarah had expected, they began using the complex machinery as cover, moving in coordinated bounds that kept them protected while steadily closing the distance. These were not the same aliens that Delta Squad had first encountered. These were professionals. Sarah's third and fourth shots forced one of the aliens to abandon a flanking maneuver, but she could see another one climbing the industrial framework above her position. Her fifth shot caught it as it tried to leap down on her, sending its body crashing into a bank of control panels. The sound of metal tearing made Sarah look up just in time to see one of the aliens cutting through the machinery. She was using for cover with the same type of tool they had used on building. Sea sparks showered down around her, as the creature systematically dismantled her protection. She rolled out of cover and put 2 shots into the alien with the cutting tool. It fell backward, but not before completing its work. Sarah's defensive position was now completely exposed from 3 sides. 8 bullets left, 3 elite alien soldiers remaining. The aliens seemed to sense that victory was within their grasp. They began moving more aggressively, their energy weapons sending constant pulses toward Sarah's position. She was forced to keep moving, rolling, and diving between pieces of equipment that offered only temporary protection. Her radio crackled with voice. We can see explosions and energy fire from your position. What's happening? Elite soldiers, Sarah gasped, ducking behind a fuel pump as energy pulses seared the air around her. Different from the others, better armed, better trained. Hold on, we're trying to figure out a way to help you. Negative, stay where you are. Needs medical attention and you can't help me without getting yourselves killed. Sarah spotted one of the remaining aliens trying to circle around behind her. She put her 9th and 10th shots into it, finally bringing it down after the second bullet found a gap in its armor. But the effort had exposed her to the other two, and energy pulses immediately began striking all around her position. 6 bullets left, 2 targets remaining. The next alien soldier was more cautious than its companions. It used the industrial equipment expertly for cover, advancing only when Sarah was forced to deal with threats from other directions. When it finally made its move, Sarah was ready. Her 11th and 12th shots dropped it cleanly, but she was now down to her last 4 bullets. 1 elite alien soldier left. This final adversary was clearly the leader of the unit. It moved with absolute confidence, its energy weapon firing precisely aimed shots that forced Sarah to abandon each defensive position almost as soon as she reached it. The creature seemed to understand human tactics and was systematically denying her any opportunity to establish a stable firing position. Sarah's 13th shot missed as the alien dove behind a large processing tank. Her 14th shot sparked off its armor as it emerged from the other side. 2 bullets left, and the alien was still advancing. That's when Sarah heard a new sound cutting through the chaos of the firefight, the distinctive whine of human aircraft engines. Through the smoke and energy fire, she could see 3 Marine approaching the mining complex at high speed. "This is Captain Torres from Bravo Company. We received your emergency beacon. Hold your position, we're coming in hot." The alien soldier seemed to realize that the tactical situation had changed dramatically. It began moving toward Sarah's position with desperate urgency, apparently hopping to complete its mission before the reinforcements arrived. Sarah's 15th shot, her second-to-last bullet, caught the alien in the shoulder and spun it around. But it recovered quickly and continued its advance, energy weapon raised and ready to fire. They were almost overhead now, their door guns beginning to strafe the mining complex. Energy pulses from alien weapons reached up toward the aircraft, but the pilots were experienced and kept their ships moving unpredictably. Sarah's final bullet was chambered and ready. The elite alien soldier was less than 10 meters away, its energy weapon aimed directly at her chest. This was it, the moment that would determine whether she lived to see another day or died on this alien world. She took careful aim, knowing she would only get one chance. The alien's armor had proven resistant to her ammunition, but she had noticed that all the creatures seemed to have a weak point at the base of their necks where their armor didn't quite overlap. The shot was perfect. Sarah's last bullet found the gap in the alien's armor and dropped it instantly. The creature's energy weapon discharged harmlessly into the purple sky as its body collapsed among the industrial debris. "Target down," Sarah whispered, her empty pistol still trained on the motionless alien. The touched down in a storm of dust and debris, and Marines in full combat armor poured out of the open doors. Captain Torres reached Sarah's position first, his medical corpsman right behind him. "Marine Ranger, I presume." Sarah managed a weak smile. "Yes, sir. Delta Squad is secure in the processing plant, needs immediate medical attention and requires surgery on his shoulder." "Already on it. Medics are moving to their position now." Torres looked around at the carnage surrounding Sarah's position. "Impressive work, Ranger. Command is going to want a full debriefing on these hostiles." As the corpsman checked Sarah for injuries, she watched the Marines securing the area and tending to the alien bodies. The intelligence value of the elite soldiers would be enormous, and the tactical data from this engagement would revolutionize humanity's understanding of the threat they faced on this world. Delta Squad was extracted safely, with making a full recovery and regaining full use of his shoulder after surgery. The mining complex was eventually retaken and fortified, becoming humanity's first major stronghold on 442B. But for Sarah, the most important outcome was simpler. She had answered the call when her fellow Marines needed backup, and her sniper rifle had provided the answer they needed to survive. In the end, that was what being a Marine Ranger was all about, standing ready to fight impossible odds for the people who counted on you, no matter what the cost. The letter to her sister remained undelivered, safely stored with her personal effects back at base. Sarah decided she would deliver it in person when her tour of duty was complete. After all, she had a story to tell that her sister would never believe. The story of the day a Marine Ranger's sniper rifle answered the call for backup on an alien world, and how humanity's first victory in an interstellar conflict was won by the courage and marksmanship of ordinary soldiers doing extraordinary things. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of 442B as Marine Ranger Sarah adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. The alien landscape stretched endlessly before her, a mix of purple vegetation and crystalline formations that still made her stomach turn after 6 months on this god-forsaken planet. She had volunteered for the Deep Space Reconnaissance mission, thinking it would be an adventure, a chance to make her mark in the Marine Corps. Now, lying flat on her belly behind a ridge of jagged rocks, she wondered if she would ever see Earth again. The distress signal crackled through her helmet communicator, breaking the eerie silence that had settled over the alien world. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Delta Squad requesting immediate backup. We are pinned down at grid reference 77 Alpha. Heavy resistance from indigenous hostiles. Repeat, we need backup now." Sarah's heart raced as she recognized Lieutenant's voice. Delta Squad had been sent to investigate strange energy readings near the abandoned mining facility 3 clicks south of her position. The facility had been mysteriously evacuated 2 weeks ago, with all equipment left behind and no sign of the workers. Command suspected hostile alien interference, but intelligence was limited. Through her high-powered scope, Sarah could see the mining complex in the distance. Smoke was rising from several buildings, and she could make out the distinctive muzzle flashes of human weapons. But something else was moving between the structures, something that definitely wasn't human. The creatures were tall and spindly, with movements that seemed too fluid and coordinated to be natural. "Delta Squad, this is Ranger. I have visual on your position. What's your situation?" Sarah transmitted, her finger already moving to the safety of her sniper rifle. "Thank God, we've got at least 20 hostiles, possibly more. They came out of nowhere and surrounded us. We're trapped in Building C with limited ammunition, is down and's been hit in the shoulder. We need extraction or we're not making it out of here." Sarah studied the tactical situation through her scope. The alien creatures had Delta Squad completely surrounded, using the industrial equipment as cover while they closed in on the building. Their movements were coordinated and intelligent, suggesting a level of tactical awareness that made them far more dangerous than the wildlife they had encountered before. She keyed her radio again. "I count approximately 25 hostiles from my position. They appear to be using coordinated attack patterns. Can you give me a clear field of fire on the east side of Building C?" "Negative, they've got us locked down tight. We can't even get to a window without taking fire. These things are fast, and their weapons seem to shoot some kind of energy projectiles." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was the only Marine in position to help, and Delta Squad was running out of time. Her training kicked in as she began calculating distances, wind speed, and trajectory. The range was just over 800 meters, well within her capabilities, but the alien targets moved differently than anything she had trained for. The creatures seemed to communicate without sound, coordinating their movements with an efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. They moved in groups of 3 or 4, leapfrogging between cover positions while maintaining constant pressure on the building where Delta Squad was trapped. "I'm going to start picking them off from the east flank. When I do, they'll probably figure out where I am pretty quickly. Be ready to move when I give you the signal." "Roger that, we'll be ready." Sarah took a deep breath and settled into her firing position. The alien landscape around her seemed to hold its breath as she acquired her first target. One of the creatures was moving between 2 pieces of mining equipment, and for a brief moment, it would be completely exposed. The shot rang out across the purple landscape, echoing off the crystalline formations. 800 meters away, the alien creature dropped instantly, its strange weapon clattering across the rocky ground. The other hostiles immediately began looking around, trying to identify where the shot had come from. Sarah was already acquiring her second target when the aliens began their counterattack. Several of them broke off from the assault on Building C and began moving in her direction, their energy weapons sending bright blue pulses across the terrain. The shots impacted the rocks around her position, sending sparks of superheated stone flying through the air. "Good shot, you got one of them. They're starting to spread out looking for you." voice crackled through the communicator. Sarah fired again, this time taking down an alien that was trying to flank around the north side of the complex. The creature's death caused the others to become more cautious, but it also made them more determined to find and eliminate the sniper who was disrupting their assault. As she worked the bolt of her rifle and chambered another round, Sarah realized that this was only the beginning. Delta Squad was still trapped, the aliens were adapting to her tactics, and she was completely alone on an alien world with limited ammunition and no backup coming. But she was a Marine Ranger, trained for exactly this kind of impossible situation. She would hold the line, no matter what it took.